Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode, number 3 on Flip Your Life podcast.
You said another episode, number 3. How many episode number 3s do we have?
Well, so I was, because sometimes when you listen to a podcast, they'll say, "Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode on Flip Your Life podcast, number 3." So it's like welcome to another episode, and then you just do like what number it is. We should probably just leave this in there.
Yeah, you could say.
That would be hilarious.
All right, what's up, guys? This is Vaughn and my boy Myles here,
What's
back
up?
on another episode of the Flip Your Life podcast. Last week we talked about what wholesaling was, how to get started in wholesaling. So I think this week we're going to talk a little bit about, what's the quickest way to get out there and take action to start finding off-market properties, or prospects is what I call it, to start filling your pipeline of people that you can start calling or reaching out to try to get your first deals. So driving for dollars for me was how I got started. Yeah. And it still to this day, 3.5 years later, is our number one prospect or lead source. Wow. Accounting for about 60 to 70% of the deals that we do. Wow. So I'm a big believer in driving for dollars. I think it's the simplest, most easiest way to get started in wholesaling and finding off-market properties. Myles, what you think, man?
No, actually, it's funny that you said that because, well, maybe not everybody, but that's actually how I got started too. Because again, I think there's a lot of barriers that people will see when they want to try and get into real estate investing. And one of those barriers is like, hey, I don't really have a lot of money. I don't really know a lot of people. I don't really, all these different things. But do you have a car that you could just get in and drive around and just, can you see? Like if you could just open your eyes, like, dude, you can get in your car and just drive around neighborhoods looking for distressed properties. And we'll get into what that means, like different types of properties and what certain signs will obviously show and reflect that this is probably a potential prospect, as you said. But yeah, driving for dollars is actually how I got my first deal. And I still do it all the time today. I call it driving with a purpose, right? Because now for me, what I do personally is like, I'll still drive for dollars, which I know you too. You're not yourself are not driving in your car, but we'll get into that as well. Like how
I'm not purposely out driving, like going to find leads on a regular basis. But, since I started this and because driving for dollars was my thing, my head is constantly on the swivel.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Dude, exactly. Yeah. And that's what, so now today I call it driving with a purpose, to where like, if I'm just going to the store, if I'm just, picking up, my daughter, or whatever we're doing, I'll just keep my eyes open. And sometimes even if I just have a quick break between something, like, maybe, I'm finishing up work, but my wife is like, oh, let's meet me at this time. And I have like 20 to 30 minutes. I'll just drive around a certain neighborhood and kind of drive for dollars. So it's something that you can do all the time. If you're just headed to the store, going to the gas station, if you want to actually dedicate a day and just drive around, like, I mean, you could just do this at any time, any moment with your vehicle. So yeah, I absolutely agree. Easiest way.
Hey, one disclaimer. Yeah, disclaimer I want to put in there though is be safe, guys. Yes. I couldn't tell you how many accidents I've almost had because my head is constantly on the swivel.
That's true.
So
that is true.
Make sure you pay attention to the road.
Yeah, we don't.
There's been a couple times where I've almost crossed that double yellow line in the middle.
Yeah, no,
because I was looking at a house so hard and like, man, that'll be a great prospect. So.
Yeah, no, we don't need any cases coming back to Flip Your Life was the reason why somebody's in the hospital or anything like that. So definitely make sure you're paying attention. And, and what I'll do too, if you're driving for dollars, is like, I'll go inside a neighborhood, where like you can slowly just drive and just take the time to kind of just look back and forth. And, so you're not just in an area where you're like going 20, 30 miles and you're just like looking back and forth. And we'll talk about actually some unique ways to help you not just drive around like aimlessly. Honestly, you can actually, especially the technology today, we'll go into the app that everyone talks about. I know that you use and crush it. They give you the resources to be able to actually just go find the properties that you're looking for, or at least the prospects that you might be interested in, rather than just like driving around randomly, looking at houses.
Dude, technology is amazing.
Yeah.
And with technology these days, they make driving for dollars extremely easy.
Right.
Well, let me not say easy. Simple, right? We like to use that word simple.
Yeah.
It's simple. It's not easy.
Right. Simple, not easy. But how does someone get started? Yeah, what do they do? What's like the first thing that someone should do? Like, hey, look, Vaughn, like I heard about wholesaling. This sounds crazy. I want to try and find my first property this weekend, today maybe. You're listening to this in the morning, whatever. What can I do? I got a car outside. I got my driver's license. I'm ready to go. Like what? Like how do you start?
Well, it's funny because you mentioned earlier that if you have a car, all you need is a car and go out and drive. Dude, you don't even need a car. Find a buddy.
That's true. That's true.
And it's probably better. It's probably
Oh
better
my
if you have a
gosh.
buddy with a
That is
car,
true.
because then you can focus more on the
That is
houses and
very
taking
true.
pictures, right?
That is very true.
But why do I do driving for dollars? Why did I start with driving for dollars? Is because it's so easy to get started today. And you can go out. You don't even have to have an app, right? You go
Yeah.
out, you start going into designated areas where you think will make for good investment properties, or where there's a lot of investor activity, and you can go to a property, pull up in front of it, write down the address, take a picture of the property, and then when you get home, if you have a notebook full of 10, 20, 30 properties, you can start to do your research on those properties and reach out to the owners.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to
Yeah.
get started, and it requires no money except for gas. And
Right.
yeah, gas prices are a little bit high right now.
Yeah.
So
Yes, you might need to borrow a little bit on the gas, but
so grab a buddy,
Right, you have
and,
to split the gas.
give them a
Yeah.
little compensation.
Right.
But it's also it's simple, man. It's effective. Like I said, it's not easy.
Right.
It's inexpensive to start. But the biggest thing for me with driving for dollars is it's a custom list.
Yes.
And if you're, been doing wholesaling or just going direct to seller, there's so many different softwares and things that we can pull lists from to market to. And if you're going on a public record, or you going on an app like PropStream or Batch Leads or something like that, and you pull a distressed list, anybody with a computer can pull that exact same stress list, right?
Right.
As long as they're using the same criteria that you're using. However, nobody's going to have the exact same list as you when you go out driving for dollars.
Right.
So there's a good chance there's a high percentage of people that you'll be reaching out to that may not have been reached out to before.
Right.
So
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, in the timing of how things are recorded. So you could be outside of a house that honestly hasn't really been maintained for a little bit, but it hasn't necessarily been recorded as like going through probate yet, or it's vacant yet, or whatever the situation. Maybe the person just, passed away or something, but they obviously haven't been maintaining it for a little while. They're a little bit older in age, and you just happen to be driving around, and you were able to see this property before it actually even hit all, because it takes time for all these things to get recorded, and because all that stuff's still
Absolutely.
people, it's not just computers, it's people, obviously operating these computers, and things have to get recorded and passed to this person in this department and that. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a very quick way and unique list.
Yeah, and it's not only is it a custom list, so you're the only one that has that list. Yeah, you might have some properties on there that other people have or other people are reaching out to. But here's what I like about driving for dollars, and the reason I use it and where we get the most traction is I think it's a better list, especially because we're taking photos, and I don't do a lot of direct mail. The only direct mail that I do is for Deal Machine or driving for dollars, right?
Mm.
And the reason I send postcards out to hot zip codes when I do driving for dollars is receiving a postcard with a real-time photo
Oh yeah.
of your house.
It's like
It's powerful, man.
Oh yeah.
It's powerful. And here's why. I own rental properties. You own rental
Oh
properties.
yeah.
I don't
gotten
get to
your
see
mail
those
pieces.
properties day in and I don't get to see those properties day in and day out, right?
Yep.
So let's say it's been a year since I've seen one of my properties, and then next thing I know, I get a postcard with a picture of my property in the mail, and I look at the postcard.
Yep. You're like, ooh.
I'm like,
Oh,
dang,
man.
that is my property.
Right.
It's in rough shape. The tenants have torn it up.
Yep.
Right? So what am I thinking? If I'm not a full-time real estate investor, and if I'm just a average Joe Blow, and this just happens to be a rental property for me, there's one or two things I got to do, right? I either got to go have a conversation with that tenant, talk about eviction if they don't clean the property up or start taking care of it, or I got to go put money into that property, even if I do evict them, and find another tenant, right?
Right.
But if I live a good bit of ways, or maybe I don't want to deal with that headache anymore, I'm going to call the person that sent me that postcard and say, hey, what are you willing to offer me?
Right.
And start up a conversation, right?
Right.
So that's the reason we get so many call-ins from our postcards, is because we put real-time photos on those postcards by our driver taking a picture of that property.
That's amazing.
It's not a Google Street View.
Right.
It's not just a text-only postcard like a lot of people send. It stands out from the crowd.
Yeah. No, I love that. And guys, that's the beauty is, like, now you might be thinking, well, man, like, I don't really have like an app that allow me to take photos and do all this. But what's crazy is you could just use your own phone. Like literally you could take a photo of your own phone. You can go, I mean, you really could bootstrap this business as much as you want. Like obviously it may not be the most effective to take a photo of multiple properties, go to like canva.com and create like a little postcard, put the photo on there, and then go to the post office, mail it a bit.
Yeah.
Guys, you got to do whatever it takes to make it happen. And I think what's more important is not us talking about whether or not it's easier or it's not. We're more so talking about it's possible, right? It's so possible for you to just get in your car and be able to do this and execute it. So it's a really, really great way. And like you said, Vaughn, I mean, you could do this with someone else too, right? And you guys could go at it together. And, I think, working together as a team could really be helpful as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to reiterate what you said, you don't have to have a software to do this. You don't have to have an app. If you're tight on money when you first get started, it took me probably 3 or 4 weeks to actually make an investment in the app.
Oh yeah,
right.
Oh yeah.
I was literally driving around taking pictures on my iPhone.
Yep.
Writing the addresses down, making sure I put a note on my picture of which property that was.
Right.
So when I got back to my office, or at that point I was at my house, I was going in, like you said, using Canva or PicMonkey or whatever, and creating a postcard just to send to that seller.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't automated at the time. I hadn't found the software that we use now. So you got to do what you got to do to get started. And the biggest thing that we talked about in the last 2 episodes was it doesn't matter what type of software you have or what kind of resources you have available to you. If you don't take action, nothing's going to happen.
Right. And guys, and I want you to also understand too, like, let's kind of get into a little bit of like, okay, this seems like I could do this, right? I can get in my car. I can start driving around. Like, what's probably the most effective way? Because I know there's some people who start driver dollars and they'll do it in a way that kind of discourages them because they're just really like wasting a lot of time and wasting a lot of money. Now, there's ways to do this the right way, and there's ways to do this in a way that probably won't get you a deal as fast as you would like. So Vaughn, maybe you could talk about how you got started with really like learning what are the best ways effectively to go out there in certain neighborhoods. How do you find the right neighborhoods? What do I do? Should I be driving for 24 hours? Obviously not 24 hours, but like how often should I be on the road? Like, what do I do?
Yeah, well, I think for everybody getting started, the first thing is to figure out what type of property that you need to target in general, whether it's driving for dollars or anything else that you're going to do. You want to figure out what your market is to be marketing to. Right. So, if you're going to be wholesaling, more than likely you're going to be selling your properties to, or signing your contracts to fix and flippers, landlords, or hedge funds. Right.
Yep.
So you need to go find those buyers, those fix and flippers, those landlords, those hedge funds, and figure out what type of properties they're looking for. And most of them should be able to give you what's called a buy box. So they can come back to you and tell you, okay, I'm looking for properties that I can purchase under, $150,000 that can sell for $250,000, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, and so forth. Right. So once you get that buy box, then another thing that you can do is figure out where the activity is, or investor activity is in your market. Right. So one of the things that we do, and we do it quarterly right now, is we use a public record software. We were using PropStream. We're now using Batch Leads. But we go in there and we put Greenville County, which is our county, right? And then we put all the criteria that we're looking for. So I can say, all right, minimum 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, 800 square foot, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm looking for all the cash transactions within the last 12 months. And it's going to spit out a number, right?
Right.
So once it spits out that number, I export that entire list, and then we sort it by zip code. So what's going to happen is when you sort that list by zip code in an Excel spreadsheet or Google Sheets or whatever it may be, you're going to have certain zip codes that rise to the top as far as how many cash transactions have taken place. Right. So if I do that and I say, all right, well, 3 zip codes, rise to the surface, those are my hot zip codes that we know that there's a lot of investor activities. Right. Oh, one thing I forgot to add is when I'm pulling that list of cash transactions, I'm pulling cash transactions by absentee owners.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking for people that are buying the properties to live in. I'm looking for people that are buying the properties for investments.
Right.
So after I do that and I see where those hot zip codes are, the next thing I do is I take those all the properties on that list, and then I put them in a system called Batch Geo, right? And what Batch Geo does, or you can do the same thing on PropStream and Batch Leads, is it creates this heat map, right? And it shows you where it puts a little marker on each property that was purchased for cash in the last 12 months. And so you can zoom out of that heat map, zoom out of that heat map, and you can see where there's a concentration of cash transactions. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
So if I look in this one little area, this zip code, and there's 100 transactions, I know that's a hot area. So I probably need to go into that area, that zip code, and start driving and taking pictures.
Right.
Because if I get a property under contract in that area, there's probably a good chance that I'll be able to move that property and make some money on it.
Right. No, I love that. And it's working backwards. It's if you're talking about wholesaling, it's what, we teach as reverse wholesale engineering, right? So you're engineering out how this process works and you're working backwards. And, just to throw in another perspective again, guys, just so you understand that it's never about, what are the challenges and focusing on the problem? Like, what are the challenges that keep me from being able to do this? Like, oh, well, I don't really have those systems, right? I know you're saying like pull the list, but like I don't have the prop stream or the batch, leads or the, batch that what all these different things is to figure that out, or batch geo. You can have conversations literally starting today. You can connect with individuals that are already in the market. So you can join, investor groups on Facebook. You can join, or not even join, but talk to real estate agents that know where, properties are being sold. If there are homes that are being renovated and flipped and they're being sold in a certain area, or, there's a lot of their realtors are finding themselves like selling houses that are being renovated and flipped in a certain area, like it probably means investors are trying to buy in or around that area to be able to flip, renovate because it's a hot area. You could start there. Just start wherever you can. You can go the route with data, like obviously Vaughn just explained, or you can just, even like I said today, before even getting all that set up or going, just talk to an individual and just get out there and start learning the market as well, start learning kind of your area, and also just keeping your eyes out. Like sometimes I don't even necessarily know, whether or not an area is super hot or not, but just because I'm out and about, I see this newly renovated property, this like super cute home. You guys see it all the time. You drive around, it's like, man, that's cute. That's a cute little home. And then maybe there's another one down the road or something like that. Keep that, take a screenshot of maybe your GPS if you're using GPS, or figure out or open up your Google Maps or your Waze or whatever, and take a screenshot and write it down that I need to go back there, and then maybe take 30 minutes or an hour to just drive in that area and see if there's anything that's distressed, anything that has a sign where the property needs to be sold, right? The grass is high, hasn't been maintained, the gutters are falling down, and the windows are kind of dark. There's just something going on. It just looks kind of like dark and kind of dead, like no one's living there. And that's just a great way to just get, because that's how I got started. When I got started, I didn't really, and that's why this podcast, Vaughn, it's amazing that you're sharing all that, because if I had heard this, like when I first got started, like, man, I would have been implementing all those things. But again, it just depends on where you're at, and we don't want you to think, if you're listening to this, like if you're not somewhere where you can do those things, X, Y, and Z, you can't do this. No, you can do this in any way, shape, or form. Like when I got started, all I knew was get in my car, and I remember seeing like some flips, in this area, or a cute little home in this area, and I just started driving around and really just trying to hit the pavement, and just that action alone will really just get you in the game. Yeah. Honestly, like get out of the seat, get out of your house, and just get out on the road, get in the field, and just, you'll feel like this is real, man. I'm an investor. I'm
Absolutely.
looking at homes, and it does something to your mind, and it puts you in a different state. So it's really, really important.
Absolutely. And just a couple tips when you're listening to this and you go out and you start driving, just because we've been doing it for a long time. I have a full-time driver that does it, and these are actually tips from him. But when you go out and start driving, a lot of these times you're going to be in neighborhoods that aren't the best neighborhoods, right?
Yep.
So you have to be, wary of what you're getting into. If you're creeping through a neighborhood and just stopping in front of every house, there's going to be people that come out of their homes and ask you what you're doing. So a couple things, just piece of advice when you go out and start driving for dollars. If you have a really nice car, a super nice car, let's say you're driving around in a Range Rover or Mercedes or something like that, a new model, you probably don't want to go in the ghetto and just start creeping around.
Oh, yeah.
Right? One of my guys, he got stopped because he's a white guy. He was in an African-American or predominantly African-American neighborhood, driving a nice car, and he's driving slow. But he got stopped by
Yeah.
the police
Oh yeah.
because the police thought that he was there to try to buy drugs.
Oh gosh,
Right?
that's crazy.
Un- yeah. Unfortunately, we all get profiled.
Right.
So these are just things that you need to be wary of. So one of the things I do is I tell them, just if you're in a super nice car, go borrow your friend's car or get your friend to drive you around or go
That's so funny.
go rent a beater or something like that.
Right.
But just be wary, what neighborhoods you're driving into.
Yeah. And
the other thing is,
one thing about that too, because that's actually funny. When I first started driving for dollars, like whether I was in a sort of a quote unquote ghetto neighborhood or a nice neighborhood, whatever, I just kind of felt weird just like driving around slow around neighborhoods. It was what I started doing in general is just think about the time of day that you drive around. So what I would do is I would wake up much earlier, like before I would even go to the gym, right as the sun is like rising. So because you don't want to when it's dark and you just can't see anything, but right when there's definitely enough light visibly where you can see details of a property, but it's still a little too early. People are kind of still hitting the snooze button. It's like 7 in the morning, 7:30, 8 o'clock. Like people are still kind of laying in bed. They're not really out and about. And you could drive around neighborhoods. I mean, literally no one even knows that you're driving around because you're there early enough. So again, it's all about solution mindset, right? So how can you get a solution going with whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish? And that's another tip that can help if you're, if you can wake up early and get out there.
Absolutely. So speaking about time, also the day, if you're driving on the weekend, just know that people are probably going to be out sitting out on the front porch.
That's true.
They might be out back grilling or in the yard grilling. So there's going to be a lot more people are going to be home on the weekend. So just take that in consideration. If you want to do your driving, I recommend doing it during the week while people are working because it's just there's not as many people that are out. Right?
Yeah.
But you're always going to have that neighborhood watch person that is just all they do is sit there and look out their window all day long looking for something to report.
Yeah.
But here's a really good one that I've heard, but I also gave the same recommendation to my driver, is if you get yourself a caution vest.
Interesting.
Right? So one of those bright neon yellow or neon orange caution vests.
I've never heard this.
And if you wear that while you're driving, guess what?
They think you're working.
Somebody comes up to you and says, "What are you doing?" Hey, I'm here and I'm just out taking surveys for the city. And so literally, hilarious. What are they going to do? They're not going to even think twice because you have this vest on.
Oh my gosh. Right? That makes me think I need to just go on Amazon and buy like a police outfit and just be like, "Oh, I'm undercover. We're looking for
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that. My wife is in law enforcement.
Especially in the wrong neighborhood.
Absolutely.
That's not going to be good.
My wife is in law enforcement. You'll be locked up before 3 o'clock.
Right. No, that's crazy though. Wow,
But no, the caution vest is a big one. That solves a lot of issues.
Wow.
So all my guys say is, "Hey, I'm out doing surveys for utility companies. Just checking different markers." Or another one that my guy uses a lot is that they're doing visual inspections on the properties for their property management company. So, they were instructed to come out here and just get a physical eyes on the property, take a picture to report back to the property management company. And my guys, they know that when they go out, and we'll talk a little bit more about the filtering and the software and getting really, detailed into the properties that you're going after. But our guys are strictly going after absentee owner properties right now.
Yeah.
So it's easy to say, hey, they were sent out by the property management company or the landlord just to get physical eyes on the property and take a picture.
Nice.
So there's simple ways that you can come up with to have a not necessarily a solution, but to have a reason for being out there driving around.
Right.
But these are things that you definitely want to be thinking about and be cognizant of if you're going to go out and drive for dollars on a regular basis.
Yeah. And honestly, guys, it just depends on who you are. I mean, again, this business is such a custom design business. You can build this how you want to build, how it works for you. Not everyone has to do it the same way. So I'm not necessarily encouraging everyone to necessarily do this if you don't feel comfortable, but use your superpowers, like be a people person. I as you can tell, I love to talk. I get really excited. I'm very energetic, and a lot of times instead of just sitting in my car and just like, I'm driving slowly around a neighborhood, man, sometimes I'll see a house and I'm like, man, this is a solid property. And I will legitimately get out of my car and go knock on the neighbor's door. Guys, I cannot tell you how many other leads and other opportunities that have come from actually what is another strategy called door knocking, which you can do both. I do 2 in 1. Literally just the other day, man. I got to share this story with you, Vaughn. It's crazy right now because like I literally not only there was a vacant property that just kind of looked a tiny bit distressed. And that's another thing, guys. Sometimes you'll see a property that you think is distressed and someone's like legitimately living there. It's kind of crazy. But anyway,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's wild. But anyway, there was a property that I thought, man, there's no way someone's living here. It's kind of just, but it was a brick ranch style home, like just perfect, beautiful. And it was right next to a newly built $650,000 custom built home. And the only reason why I know it was $650,000, because this is a part of the story, is I drove into the driveway because there was kind of this old raggedy like truck kind of in the back. So I'm thinking maybe like, let me just knock on the door. Because if there is someone there, I don't know. You never know. Maybe they're thinking about selling. Maybe they're planning on moving. Maybe they're, who knows what the situation is. So I just knocked on the door. No one answered. Right. But I'm like, dude, I'm already out here. Like, dude, I want to try and figure out, what can I get out of this opportunity? So I literally went to the neighbor next door, and just to make a long story short, oh my gosh, I mean, this guy moved from California. We talked for like an hour. This guy moved from California. He's like about to get baptized. He really felt like he's just, had a really rough upbringing, and, and it's just his past, and, he's getting baptized. And long story short, he actually ended up talking about how he moved from California and he bought a house, and it was on the other side of the road. And he ended up leaving that property because he just wanted something a little bit bigger. So he bought the house that he was in, that I was actually talking to him. But he realized now that he kind of wants to go back to that other property because it's smaller, and he just doesn't need what he needs now as he's getting older. And he just kind of realized he just doesn't want to really be in this home. So he says he doesn't want to be a landlord. He doesn't want to be a landlord, but he does have tenants in the other property. So he said, and I know this, in April, and it's crazy because he literally texted me the other day. He's like, hey man, once April comes around, like I'll be reaching back out to you. We can kind of figure out where we go from there, because legitimately he moved from California. It's not like he's well known here and he has all these contacts. So I just happened to build this relationship with him. So I'm like the guy that he's obviously going to remember and want to come to. But in April, he's actually, sorry, not April, it was August. In August, he's actually, the tenant's lease is expiring. And he said, I'm not keeping both properties. I'm going to sell one of them. I don't know if I'm just going to keep this one, or if I'm going to keep the other one that he really kind of wants to move to, because apparently there's value in the land. The land has some unique access, just utilities on both sides of the road. And it's just like all these different things that he just really thinks is valuable in that property, but he just doesn't know. So either way, he's going to sell one of them. And they're both actually pretty good properties, either way, whichever way he goes.
Oh, yeah.
But long story short is also, or long story long, right? Also, me being able to skip trace that property to originally try and call through the Deal Machine app, which again, we're going to talk through some of the systems and softwares that you can use. But I was right outside the house, and that's another tip sometimes, guys. Maybe you don't have all the softwares to get, Deal Machine and add up a bunch of properties, go back to PropStream, or Batch, and, download the list and skip trace it through a system, and then go back and call it through a dialer, all these different things, guys. I will literally just use my app, and I'll be right outside the house, and I'll literally skip trace it right then and there, because it's a cost of speed. It's the cost of speed. I will spend a couple minutes to be able to talk to that person right then and there, because the time it takes for me to do, a bunch of rounds and then go home and then skip through all this, like I could be talking to this individual and ready to go before someone else got to it. So anyway, I called the number that was skip traced for that home, and the name was Darren, and I'm like, hey Darren, so sorry to bother you, man. Don't want to take up too much of your time, but I'm just right outside this house here on 123 Main Street. And, I was just kind of interested, like, is this something that you plan to keep, or you guys maybe holding this for rental, or do you even know kind of like what is this, I don't even know if this is your property, and he goes, oh yeah, no, I don't live in that one. We actually just built the house next door to it. And I was like, wait, that custom build, the modern custom home build? He's like, yeah. I'm like, what? Long story short, guys, not only do I have a lead with a guy who's going to be selling a house some point, in the next couple of months, either one of those houses, I also built a relationship with a builder, because there's also lot deals that I work with land, and I work with vacant lots, and this guy's a builder. So it was just like a 2-in-1 package. So the reason I'm saying all this, guys, is you can leverage this however you want. You can get in your car. You can spend 5-6 hours driving around. You can also just take 2 hours or an hour and drive, and then even get out of your car and knock on the door, talk to some neighbors. Like, you can create this however you want, but just leverage your strong suit, like leverage your strengths. And if you're a people person, you're outgoing, you're not afraid to just go knock on the door, I promise you will definitely get some really crazy opportunities. Whereas the other person who's way too afraid to get out and knock on the door and say something to somebody, they will not. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And like you said, this business is all about connections, right? And not connections that, you can have the hookup with, right? Or that, like the builder and stuff like that, but it's connecting to people. It's connecting to the sellers. It's connecting to buyers. It's everything that we do is connections, right?
Right.
We talked about that in the I think it's the last episode. But yeah, I think we're going to split this episode up into two parts.
Yes.
And the next part that we're going to talk about is going to be talking about the software and choosing the right driving for dollars software for you. I know we use the same software, so we're going to talk a little bit about that in the next episode.
Right.
But that's not the only software that's out there.
Yeah.
But if there's one thing I want everybody to take away from this episode is, and we keep saying this, is get off your butt.
Yeah.
And take action.
Get out there, man.
Right? Because nothing happens without action.
Yep.
So you don't have to have a software. The next episode will come out in a week, and in this next week, you can go out there and start taking pictures with your phone, writing down addresses, and coming back and skip tracing them. Or if you don't have skip tracing software, go to truepeoplesearch.com.
True People Search, baby.
So honestly, you just got to take action,
here's the thing,
man.
and actually, I'm going to go ahead and say this. I used to actually promote that as well, because that's what I use, True People Search. But I'm actually going to do this because I think this is actually valuable and important. If you don't have a skip tracing software that will skip trace in bulk, you need to go use REI Skip. Our man Max Maxwell created REI Skip, and the beauty about REI Skip is that you can skip trace properties individually. Now, guys, skip tracing individually, dude, it's like $1, $2, or $1. If you don't even have you may be in the wrong industry. If you're not willing to spend $1 or $2 to be able to find a deal that could net you $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, then this may not be for you. So the reason I say that is because two things: A, there needs to be some kind of value in you bringing to this business, and you have to understand that sometimes it does take a little bit of stretching yourself and getting out of your comfort zone. So if you got to spend $1, $2, $3, dude, you got to spend that money. It's going to give you real accurate data. True People Search is free, but again, you get what you pay for, because I'm sure Vaughn can contest to that. The same thing for me is that I use True People Search because it was just free and I just used it, but a lot of that information is not as accurate or as is updated.
It's only about 35% accurate,
right?
But you get what you pay for.
You get what you pay for,
and then that way you're not paying for anything,
right? Exactly. You didn't pay for anything, so you're not getting much. So with REI Skip, it'll really help you out, guys, because it is single skip tracing and it is definitely very accurate data. And we're talking about a single skip trace, $1, $2, like just do it. It is worth it.
Absolutely. And we could, that's a whole nother episode talking about investing and investing in yourself and all that good stuff. But man, I'm looking forward to the next episode.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Where we talk about actually get into the meat and potatoes of the actual softwares that we use and how to create a system. Like if you're going to do driving for dollars, you got to create a system to make it simple and effective.
Right.
Especially if you plan to grow a team or build a team around it.
Right.
So we'll get into all that in the next episode. I think we're about to log off here. Myles, you got anything else you want to say?
No, man. I think we covered a good bit. I'm excited for the next episode. Let's do it.
Awesome. Well, guys, thanks for joining us on this episode. This is going to be part 1 of a 2-part series. Heck, we might even go to a 3-part series.
Yeah, honestly, we may.
We talk about in the next episode.
Yeah, Driving for Dollars is pretty deep. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. So Driving for Dollars is probably the simple and most effective way to get out there with the minimal cost associated with it as possible to start getting your first deal. So, guys, once again, welcome. Thanks for joining us on the Flip Your Life podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Awesome.
You can't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. Where the brakes at? I give them that.